Welcome back to the Warrior Servant Leader podcast. We're so glad to have you here. Of course, you know it's where we talk about real leadership, share real stories and solutions, and no excuses are allowed. Today, we got a great guest, Brent Dowlen. He's a men's coach, a speaker, a local news anchor, and founder of the Fallible Man LLC. He is a podcast host himself with multiple podcasts, including the Driven to Thrive broadcast, helping men stop drifting through life and start living with clarity and purpose. He's married to his best friend for nearly 25 years. He's a proud, as he calls it, girl dad, 2 daughters. He's a strongman enthusiast, and we got to bump coffee mugs. He's a unabashed coffee devotee. Mine's Aerial Resupply. You have to tell us who's your favorite go-to coffee. His daily routine: running on caffeine, conviction, and just enough chaos to keep life interesting. Brent, welcome to the show, man. We're so glad to have you here. And I got to ask, what's your go-to coffee?
Go-to is Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Oh,
I'm from a military family, a lot of veterans in the family, and so for me, it was I used to drink a lot of Death Wish coffee, and I still love it, but I wanted to support a veteran-owned company, so they do a lot for our vets. My brother-in-law benefited from them when he was over in Afghanistan, so I like to support those guys.
Oh, awesome. Well, mine, Aerial Resupply. He's a veteran, Mike Clemmer, and makes some awesome coffee. And his daughter I'm not even sure how old she is, designs little kitty caricatures that are on all his products. So I'm with you. Supporting veterans is an extremely, extremely important part we can have in their lives to show our appreciation. All right, Brent, we're going to jump in, man. We're just going to dive in. I'm thinking this one's going to be a Tough Love Thursday episode. Let's get into men drifting through life. I call it the lazy river ride. I despise this saying, and so many people live this way. And the saying is, "It is what it is," and that is such a, I think, harmful mindset to have. What are you doing to try and get men back to that, not toxic masculinity, but true manly, masculine leadership mindset and behaviors that they should be showing in life?
Oh wow! So there's a lot if we go down that road, and this is going to fit well for your Tough Love Thursday because I have a background as also a personal trainer, and I'm the really angry, mean, throw things kind of personal trainer. Like people with feelings don't work with me, because I'm the one who's like, oh yeah, it sucks, great, add 10 more pounds, let's do it again. You know, I'm the last one to baby anybody because I think that is part of the problem, right? We drift so much, like you were talking about the lazy river. I love that idea, that concept. It's like that illustrates it so well. And so we're trying to do a lot of different things at once, and it is probably one of my weak points is I try to reach so many guys, but it's every guy is such a different person, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so this man he needs that kick in the butt because he comes home and he just crashes, right? He comes from home from work and he provided, he's got a great job and he provided for his family. He did his part. So he comes home and he crashes and just checks out. But he's, put on that extra 30 pounds in the last couple years as age and time start catching up and sitting at a desk all the time, right? And there's a whole conversation down that where we start looking at, do you have any right to look that way? Do you have any right to let your body do that to yourself? Right? For yourself personally, do you have any right as a man to let yourself go down that road? And then we look at family, right? Is there a family involved? Are you going home and crashing out because you're not, you provided? I know a lot of men were raised with this mindset of that's our whole job.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of guys who are checking out and aren't being dads at all, or they're not being good husbands if they're married, right? And so we have those kind of guys I'm trying to reach and trying to come into and go, okay, where are you at? Let's look individually. Okay, what do we need to start tweaking to get you back on your path? What are you letting go here? And then we have guys who have gone the other direction entirely, and they may be a workaholic and they're CEO, but they spend so much time over here that they've given up everything else, and so they disconnected that way.
Yeah.
And it really becomes, I was told when I started doing this 6 years ago now, I think, that my YouTube channel, my podcast would fail. I had a YouTube expert and professional coach tell me my show would fail 100%. And I was like, that's really positive, right? He's like, the problem is you're not niche enough. I said, well, the problem is you think that people are niche. I'm more than a girl dad, right? I've been married 25 years now. I was listening during the introduction, and my wife and I passed our 25th anniversary this last April. Married for 25. We've been together for 27 years now. And really, we actually started as best friends. It was a friendship. There was no romantic relationship when we started. So I'm not exaggerating when I said I married my best friend, because one day I just woke up and went, I'd be stupid not to marry this person that I connect with and I'm in tune with, and I love to spend time with her and talk to her. And to this day, like, she's still the person I want to spend all my time with. We've got a business event later today, and we got to drive out like 20-minute drive. And I'm just looking forward to the 20-minute drive, because that's 20 minutes with just her and I talking. And we don't get that very often. I have a small house. They've got 5 of us in it with 2 kids, and my mom lives with us. And so when I was told all this, like, you can't talk about marriage, and you can't talk about being a dad, and you can't talk about being masculinity, and you can't talk about health issues, and you can't talk about intentional. You can't do that all in one show, because it's not niche enough. I was like, but I'm not just a husband. I'm not just a dad. I'm not just a small business owner. I'm not just like, I hate the jest.
Yeah.
Right. That people like to put on it, because nobody is that simple. That's way too easy. That's a cop out. And so I dived down a whole lot of roads, and it probably cost me, I don't know, being larger than my podcast is, or having more clients, because I won't do this narrow focus thing. But Pat, you and I have only talked once before, and I know you're not that simple. It's right. And so to really help men, we have to start plugging in very individually. We have to start talking about where they're letting the ball drop. And for a lot of guys, it's easy to start predicting it, because we've all been given the same exact path. It hasn't changed in hundreds of years of human development, right? We all get the same exact line. It's go to school, get your education, get a job, have a family, get the house, the dog, and the picket fence, and the 2.5 kids. I don't know how you do 2.5 kids, but we were all told that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't understand that. And so this is the game plan we were all given. And so it's easy usually because we're trying to follow that, because that's what we were all told.
Yeah. And on top of that, all those things you just said, then add this specifically for men is shut your mouth, suck it up, buttercup, nose to the grindstone, pull up by the bootstrap, fill in the blank. Yep. And my dad and my parents were great, and I'm adopted, so I find family relationships. I never took anything for granted. Let's put it that way. But he worked at the same company for 36 years, and now we have in law enforcement. It's amazing, younger cops and I train cops all over the country, and I hear from the older generation law enforcement, yeah, these young kids, agency ABC over here, they all have take home, Tahoes, and they'll leave a perfectly good agency making good money and doing a good job because they want to take home Tahoe. Yeah, and so there's not that sense of loyalty or commitment. And I understand, people changing jobs for a variety of reasons, but that masculinity, that mindset as the breadwinner that you and I grew up with, is you didn't dare think about quitting a job and what, we'll just see if I can get another one down the road kind of deal. But that whole suck it up buttercup is such a was in hindsight is bad advice from a mental health and even physical health standpoint. So I want to jump on that. You said I'm not just a dad. I'm not just a husband, whatnot. It's how often do we, in thinking that we're actually maybe talking it out of humility, go, well, I'm just a cop, or I'm just a postal worker, or I'm just something, and you're diminishing your value and opportunities to be a person of influence and impact in people's lives because you don't see yourself as anything special. What do you? What's your experience, your lived experience with that kind of mindset? Either you have it, because I'm going to tell you right now, I was retired after a 26-year career and had been retired for several years, and we've been married. We're coming up on 46 years and five kids. That it wasn't until after I retired that my wife finally told me, Pat, for your nearly 30-year career in law enforcement, I felt like a single parent raising 5 kids. And I had no clue that I had checked out, or I thought I was doing like you were saying. I was doing all the right things. And what really the gut punch was that she suffered silently for the 20 some odd years of feeling like a single parent. And what a failure. I mean, I own that. So what's your experience in that arena? I mean, are you now preaching and leading and guiding from personal experience, and you had a revelation, or how'd you get to where you're at?
So I had this experience partially because it's funny. You were talking about, 20 plus years as an agency. And I actually handled the debates for our upcoming sheriff's elections. And all of those guys have been with the sheriff's department for 26 plus years. And one of them's like 30, going on 32 years. And they've all been in this one agency for years and years and years. Right. Unfortunately, you started seeing it with Gen X, where companies no longer had the loyalty to their employees anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I worked in the IT industry for years. The only way you get a raise in the IT industry is you find another job. Like that's the guaranteed. Most people don't stay anywhere longer than 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
The only way you're probably getting a raise is if you take a position at another company, which was a really mind-blowing effect. My friend is now, he just turned 51, and he just lost his job because of AI. That he's been at Microsoft for 20 plus years now. And he's just like totally lost because he was raised, his father was a mechanic his whole life, right? Worked on cars his whole life. That's what he did. His son went to college, got a degree, and has been in IT for 30 plus years and been with his last company for 20 plus years now. And this idea, like, he's coming face to face with there's not that loyalty anymore from companies. And so it's been a big change it really started in the Gen X and then moved on to the millennials, and it's just become normal. You don't see people last at places, but we still, as men, take a lot of our identity. Men specifically, more so than women, actually take their identity based on what they do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many times have you introduced yourself, Pat, and been like, "Oh, I'm Pat. No, I'm in law enforcement, or I'm a cop," or right? The first time I ever introduced myself as a podcaster, I almost choked. I had been in IT for years. I've been in IT for like 13, 14 years at that point. And I finally left that safety net and gone out on my own after my last IT position. And I was at our local hardware store and I was buying something. And I got to talking to the nice young girl at the cab at the counter, and we were talking. I made some comment about podcasts. She's like, "Oh, I love podcasts." And the conversation carried on. I was like, "Oh, I'm a podcaster," because that was what I was doing at the time, full time. And like it blew her mind because I'm in this little town, but I was like, "I'm a podcast," and it totally changed the first time I said it. And like I stopped. I finished the conversation politely. I went out to my car and I just sat there for a few minutes and I went, "I'm a podcaster." Right. And just kind of let that idea soak in, because my identity had been I'm an IT guy.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to be like, actually, I'm a men's coach. I help guys. I talk to people, because if you're not in a similar field, like it's a really lonely area. It's still awkward at church because I still get the normal thing at church. I've been in the same church for 13 years and I don't relate well to the other guys at church, because someone can identify with being a small business owner. But when I'm like, "Oh, I'm in the podcast and media industry. I talk online for a living," which honestly, I've been doing it for years. I'm still not convinced it's a real job, to be honest, but it's been my job for several years now. So I probably shouldn't say that, but we take so much of our identity out of what we do for a living as men specifically. That is our big identifier. And this is why guys struggle like when they retire, because once you lose that, that's been your whole identity for years. Some guys spread an add on to that. Well, I'm also a dad, right? But that's our identity. And I'm a dad when I go to my kids' sporting events and stuff like that. That's how I identify myself. Oh, I'm so-and-so's dad.
Yeah.
But those are our identities. Those are our talking points. And we were never told that you're more than that you have more value than that you bring more to the conversation than that you have more game than that, right? There is so much more to you, starting with that, original point. And we skate by on this being our one identity without ever being told, you got a lot more than that. You're a lot deeper than that. And you have a lot more that makes your job doesn't define who you are, right? Right now, my company, besides podcasting, we're a media company. We also do all the local news. And yeah, it's easy for me to say I'm a news guy to people when I'm out doing interviews and stuff like that and covering events.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to be like, well, I'm a small business owner, right? Because that's true too, right? I'm a small business owner. I do podcasting. I do news. I'm a small media company. But I try not to describe myself that way anymore, because that's such a narrow frame anymore. And it's not really who I am, because let's face it, I'm the same person I was when I was doing IT for a living. I used to train people in the IT industry. I was the head trainer for my division. I'd go to other sites and set up new sites and hire people. I've been a trainer in the electrical field, right? I've been in the military. I've been a minister. I've done a lot of things. And guess what? I didn't change. Who I am was never dependent on what I did. And it really took me kind of throwing caution in the wind and getting out of the safe IT company I was at, right? Because, I wasn't rich by any means, but, I was upper middle class for sure, $80,000, $90,000 a year by myself without my wife having to work, IT job, white collar kind of work.
Yeah.
right. It's a solid income, and a lot of people never get there. And it was really safe, and I had insurance and I had a retirement plan. But until I decided to step out of that comfort zone and realize that I wanted to do something else, but I've been there for years. I still want to do something else. I've been there for years, right? Me didn't change. Me just changed what I do to make money. And most guys don't disassociate their income source from who they actually are. Me has a lot to offer my wife, has a lot to offer my community. I do a lot of the children's productions here, the children's theater productions here. I work with our local Partnership for Youth program on the anti-drug programs. I go to school board meetings and city council meetings and stuff like that as a reporter. I also interview and do advertising for other small businesses, right? Me doesn't change. What I'm doing for a living changes, and getting guys to break that connection in their head
Yeah.
to understand that they are not this. This is what they do.
Yeah.
This is how they make money.
I saw that in law enforcement. I would ask young officers, if you could not be a cop, what would you do? And they would, deer in the headlights.
Right?
Like, I don't know what I'd do. Well, that tells me, and I've had this saying for a long time, is your work does not define who you are. Who you are should define how you do your work.
Right.
And I'm a lot older than you. I didn't come to those realizations until probably my mid to late 40s, maybe even early 50s. And I retired when I was 54. And I've been retired pretty long. And it finally, here's the aha moment I had, is because I would always ask myself, well, why do I think that way? Why do I think, why do I introduce myself as, oh yeah, hey, my name's Pat Welsh, I'm a police officer. And I always had to, or depending on the crowd, because I'm also a lawyer. And in fact, I've been a lawyer longer than I was a cop. And that qualified what I do to my name. And here's the aha moment I came to. And we did it, we still do it with our own kids. I probably even did it with my granddaughter, who's now, well, she'll be 20 next month. You were asked this question and I was asked this question, and I know I asked my oldest granddaughter, this question. What do you want to be when you grow up? And that's how we got conditioned for the job and identity were so, you had to choose,
Mm-hmm.
And tied into the, education and whatnot. Because if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, then you're not going to take the right classes if you go to college, or you're not going to take the right classes even in high school, for college prep or all those kinds of things. But we're doing it to ourselves. And I like how you got the mindset, and I call it the warrior mindset. You are willing to stand up, show up, and defend what you believe, regardless of the downside that there may be to that. So I think kudos to you for having that mindset. What are some of the challenges? Because you're a father and two daughters. What are some of the downsides? Because we had three daughters and two boys, so I had a little testosterone in the house besides my own. How do you relate to your wife and to your daughters, so you don't come across as that toxic masculinity?
By being masculine.
All right.
I have to challenge this concept all the time. I don't believe in toxic masculinity. I believe that the lack of masculinity is this toxic crap you see young men doing these days.
Okay.
I have never met
Yeah.
a masculine man. Now, I've known a lot of guys in law enforcement. I've known a lot of guys in like the special forces industry. I had to call it an industry, the special forces world. And I always say it this way, right? A lion doesn't have to tell anybody he's a lion, right? You don't go out on the African savannah and have zebras or giraffes or something like that start encroaching it, looking at that lion going,
I think,
well, maybe today he's a pussycat.
yeah. Or maybe I can take him.
He doesn't have to strut. He doesn't have to yell. He doesn't, like, every animal there knows if they provoke the lion, it's on, right? He saves, he does his job, right? And a male lion is an interesting character anyway, but they do their job, right?
Yeah.
Protect. They don't even do most of the hunting. They protect. That is their
Yeah.
primary job, is to protect and father children. And it saves all his energy because that cat can go from a dead stop out cold to death in a half a second. The utter fury behind it, right? Now, I know a lot of guys, Navy SEALs. I've known guys in the Ranger units. I've known a couple Green Berets. Some of the mildest, gentlest guys I've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they were never threatened by anything, right? They don't have to strut around and be like, I'm tough, I'm big, right? That's a lack of masculinity. Is those guys who are strutting around trying to pretend they're masculine, trying to pretend they're tough. And that's where you get this boyish behavior. That's where you get, I'm so appalled by the videos I keep seeing online of, like, you know, random young men just walking up and blindsidedly hitting an old person or a girl or even another guy, just sucker punching somebody out of the blue. That is such toxic behavior, but that is not masculine men. Masculine men were raised to respect things. They were raised with standards, with discipline, with barriers or boundaries in their life. And so I would argue that a lot of the behavior we see most of the time that people are calling toxic masculinity is a lack of masculinity. I think really masculine guys who are raised with masculine examples, they don't act like that. I don't know any guy that I would consider masculine that acts like that. You can be a dude. You can be a guy. You can be a boy. It doesn't make you a man. It doesn't make you masculine, right? The best thing I can do for my wife and my daughters is to be the man I'm supposed to be. It's to is to go work out and take care of my body and make sure I'm strong enough to take care of them and do the things I need to do. So make sure I'm physically capable. It's to be the man, because men lead. Men set the boundaries for their families, that protect them, that take care of them, that structure their development, right? Part of my job as a dad is to setting those rules and those boundaries that make sure my daughters are following a path that's going to be healthy for them, that they're getting the attention they need, the love they need, the education they need, that I'm keeping toxic people away from them. Like, we homeschool our children because I just have no faith left. I know a lot of really great teachers. Now, let me be really clear. I hate to talk on teachers. My sister's a teacher, a lot of friends in the teaching community. I know a lot of great teachers that are hamstringed by the education departments they work for, right? So there are a lot of great teachers out there. There's not a lot of great education going on in our schools. I'm actually really pissed off right now because the state of Washington, where I live, will not allow my daughter to take her GED. And I told her she could. I didn't know that they wouldn't do it because you have to be 16 in most states, apparently, to take your GED. Well, my daughter just finished 8th grade, but she could pass her GED tomorrow if she needed to. The schoolwork we do is far above what our high school students are graduating with. And so at 8th grade, she's doing math that our high school students, my seniors that just graduated here in our local town, could not pass half the math she's doing. And so I told her she could take her GED. I couldn't take her out of school entirely, but she could just go take the fun classes, the continuing education stuff, start working on her associates if she wanted with Running Start. Because as going into 9th grade, she's smart enough to do it. She's capable of doing it. But the state won't allow her to take it till she's at least 16. right? We just found that out after we've been on this plan for like the last year. I told her this summer, get it done, and then we'll just go to the fun classes. But it's setting those boundaries as a father, right? I look at who she spends time with. I know who all of my kids spend time with. I know their friends. They're around our house. I don't even like hanging out with other people's kids, but they're around my house. Why? Because I need to know who's influencing them, who's affecting them, right? Because that's part of dad needs to be a protector. And if the kids they're hanging out with are affecting them in a negative light, then we need to step in and set some boundaries there. So, people spout toxic masculinity, but it is, to me, a lack of masculinity that is actually impacting our children and our lives at a massive rate. I grew up at a time when other people's parents could discipline you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
My friends' parents could discipline me. You didn't act out anywhere. I could be on the other side of town visiting a friend. You didn't act out because a stranger in the store could discipline you. Why? Because there were societal expectations. It wasn't wrong. No one would, my parents didn't let other people beat me or anything, but discipline was allowed, right?
Yeah.
And it was a societal norm. That was because men would protect children and parents acted like parents, right? We don't have more psychos in the world than we used to. I don't think there's any more sick people in the world than there were when I was growing up. But the difference is society would not tolerate it years ago, right? They were still there, but they didn't show their faces because you'd see that kid going down the street, and if some strange person came at them, you're on that, right? That's the world I grew up with.
Yeah.
Men protected children. Why? Because it was unquestionably the right thing to do as a man. It didn't have to be your kid. It could be any other kid. You stepped up as a man to protect that child.
Yeah.
You stepped up as a man to protect that woman. Because why? Yeah, she may be a really capable woman, but let's face it, that dude's bigger than she is. And we're not going to stand by. My mom was teasing my daughters the other night because they made some comment about my sister. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mess with her. And I have two brothers. When Blink and I get in a fight with them, I would never fight my sister. She is by far the meanest out of four of us. The three brothers I'm the little one. She is the meanest out of all of us because she had to be.
Yeah.
But we took care of her and loved her, but never in my life would I ever raise a hand to my sister, not even to protect myself, because I was raised in a Southern family. You didn't hit women ever. There wasn't a justification.
Yeah.
You could cover yourself up. You could get away. You could protect yourself, right? It was a different standard. And so the best thing I can do is model that behavior for my children, right? So that my daughters are looking for a man who is masculine, who is strong, who has boundaries, who has standards, who has expectations of the way they're supposed to conduct themselves, the way they're supposed to live their lives. It's the best thing I can do as a dad.
Wow. I'm taking notes. And one of the things that struck me and reminded me is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And that my picture of toxic masculinity is genetically you're a man. Psychologically, you're an egotistical POS. And your behavior, that behavior is toxic. And that's what I think of with toxic masculinity is a person who's an egotistical POS who happens to genetically have a set between his legs. And I agree, because we had three daughters, and I'm sure they did not like it, but if you wanted to date one of my daughters, you had to come in the house, meet me, and I got to ask you 5 questions. And the girls didn't know what the question was going to be, because I'm gauging, and I'm not going to be able to stop if they, I could tell them, no, you're not going to go out on a date with this person. I can't control that you're holding hands at school or something like that. But I was asking quite like, and one of the questions usually was, well, what do you want to be after high school? I'm looking for characteristics that you are even remotely kind of worthy of dating my daughter. You're really not, but I'll give you a little benefit of the doubt. Is one thing. The other thing that you reminded me of in sharing your insights, in the Catholic Church, he was just made a saint a year ago. He died in 2006, 15 years old, born 1991, in France, raised in Milan, Italy. And this is one of his, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it, one of the things that he said before, and he died of leukemia, by the way, was this. And what an insight for a 15-year-old to have. We're all born unique, but sadly, many of us die a photocopy of someone or something else. And I think what I see and hear, because we know we have some friends in common, is that what I see and hear about you is that's a message you're trying to share in a very focused way of, you can't be Kermit the Frog sipping, your Lipton tea going, it's none of my business, because that's a cop-out. And to come back to being that man that God created you to be, and you having been a minister, Jeremiah, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb, and I consecrated you before you were born. That means he had a purpose for you, and he gifted and talented you to be that person that he created you to be. And so, again, kudos to you for standing up and not. Here's how I picture you. I think you and Paul would be best buddies back in the day. That I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm gonna tell you how it is, and you can take it or leave it. And then I want to kind of get into this a little bit on a faith kind of side, because there's a lot of this yakking back and forth, and you're a misogynist, you're this, that. I mean, all this name calling and arguments, and people have made an industry out of being the anti whatever, kind of thing. Is, if you look at the story of Jesus, whether you are a person of faith or not, but if you read Scripture, New Testament, strictly from a perspective of Jesus as a man, that's masculinity. And it's not being he wasn't a pansy, he wasn't a tree hugger. Yeah, I guess I probably shouldn't have said that, but he wasn't fake. He wasn't let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and why can't we all coexist and we all get along together? No, he called a prostitute, quit sinning. He didn't go, hey, you made some bad choices in life and try and do better. Or they turned the temple into a corrupt money changing enterprise. He didn't go in and go, please stop. I really wish you guys would do this. Nah, man, he made a cord of ropes and went in and flipped their tables and stuff. But he also talked about and lived a life of love and peace and had those standards, the Beatitudes, all those things. That's the true masculine person we're called to be as men. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth or, let's go down that road for a minute. What are your thoughts?
Well, I always, being saying that Paul would be a good friend. I'm honored. That's high praise. I have a lot of I have a lot. Paul's one of my favorite individuals in scripture for sure. But one of the reasons I liked it is as Paul got himself into trouble because
Prison trouble.
but he did it because he told the truth.
Yeah.
It's actually, so it's become a running joke in my house. One of the podcasts I'm on a regular basis is a men's podcast. It's called the Men's Roundtable Series, and it's a panel podcast. There's like 4 or 5 of us on it every week, and I do it with Rory and Yusuf Marshall and a couple other guys. And one of the guys on there likes to joke. He's the youngest guy in the group. About he wants to give me a shirt that says "I start shit." So I'm wearing it when we're doing the show. Because like he'll jump in from the comments even when he's not on the panel and be like, "All right, Brent, start it off, start some crap." You know? And it's funny because like with my daughters, it's become a joke, right? I just blew up. I'm on a board for a community thing, and like I just blew up an email chain bad, and it was because of this nonsense, right? It was just utter nonsense. And at 46, I'm just at a point in my life where I'm tired of the stupid. I'm tired of, I don't want to pat around the little stuff. I want to deal with it head on. And I'm tired of the stupid. I don't want to pacify somebody. I'm not here to make friends on stuff. And so Paul got in trouble because he told the truth no matter what it cost him. And I told my daughters, I said, it's really a sad testimony that we're in a place where like I get teased about starting stuff. I'm never like trying to blow something up. I just don't pat it. I say what I actually mean. I say what I actually believe is true and grounded in scripture and truth. And that's where I come from on things. And I told my daughters, like, we're just this is a really sad point in the world where by telling the truth, you're seen as somebody who an upstart. You're the person who rocks the boat because you actually tell the truth in a world where people don't say what they mean and don't by what they say a lot of times. And I think Jesus set that example really solidly, right? We know, and you were mentioning the Catholic Church. I hate crucifixes for one thing, as they all make him look like this skinny little like runt. He grew up a carpenter's kid. Homeboy was in good shape. 3 years on the road, walking everywhere. Dude was in decent shape, right? I hate the skinny crucifix Jesus. And I think of that every time one of my friends is Catholic. I always used to tease him about it when I go to mass with him. But Jesus always told the truth, right? It was that simple. He was slow to anger, but there was justifiable anger when it was right, when it was justified, right? He didn't say, do it, come to me when things are good. He said, yeah, you're a screw up, but you know what? We can work with that. Right.
Yeah.
People where they were, he told them the truth. He didn't say, hey, I know you're a screw up, but really you're an upright guy. No, you're a screw up. So let's fix it from there. I'm not going to leave you there. One of my favorite sayings has always been, God loves you where you are, but he loves you too much to leave you there.
Yeah.
And, I experienced that in my life. I've been through my own ups and downs, but that is something that very much shapes who I try to be. One of the best compliments I ever got, I worked with this kid in IT years ago. I trained him, good kid. I call him a kid only because he's like 15 years, 20 years younger than I am. But he came out one night with my wife and I to do something, and he was like, man, you're the same at work as you are at home. I was like, thank you. That's who I want to be. I don't want there to be work Brent, home Brent, dad Brent, right? I try and be the same person. And when I'm talking to people, when I'm calling guys out, if there's grounds to call me out. I'm down with that. Right. I know I'm not perfect. I know I blow it. I know I make mistakes. And I think a lot of us let things go. We know the truth. We see the truths, right? Whether it's a faith-based truth or whether it's just a truth of we're hiding. We don't want to work harder. We don't want to push ourselves. We don't want to, like, let's face it, right? We all know how to get skinny. There are very few people in the world who don't know how to eat right. I worked in, like I said, as a personal trainer. I've never met a client who didn't actually know how to eat right.
Mhm.
Knowing it and doing it, different things, right? Otherwise, we'd all be skinny and healthy. But that's the thing. People know the truth. I
Yeah.
haven't met many men who don't know, like, as a father, that they need to be a loving husband to their wife, that they need to be an attentive and present father. And I know that's a big jump. We've gone a long way because for a lot of years, just providing for your family was enough. Really, Gen X, millennials were the first one. Those are the first ones who have been called upon to be like, no, no, no. You need to be present with your kids and emotionally available to them. And men are still reeling from that transition from our parents' generation of going, wait, no, we go to work, we pay the bills, we take our kids to Little League. But this whole touchy feely dad is a whole new, it's funny because my dad is a boomer and was touchy feely dad. Like my dad was an emotional man. He was a pastor for 46 years. And he was one of the first men I ever saw cry, right? Touching
Yeah.
into a movie, he's in tears. He was such a loving and present father. So it's really weird to me. Like, it was odd getting used to, like, my friends' parents
Hmm.
who weren't that way, and understanding that this was the norm, not what I was experiencing. So it set me in a really positive way. But the truth is, we all already know. That's the hard part. This is what drives me insane when people, especially when I talk to other men, it's so rare to meet somebody who doesn't actually know. They know they need to show up for their kids. They know they need to show up at their job and work hard. They know they probably need to work on getting ahead and improving themselves in some way. They know they can be a better husband. They know they can be a better community member. They already know. It's just convincing them it's worthwhile.
And they're not the first. 'Cause-
Right?
but I'm cradle Catholic, so I've graduated from 4-year biblical studies program it was 9 months a year, 2.5 hours classroom instruction, homework, test, 9 months a year for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a Catholic institute, but I can't do chapter and verse kind of stuff. But so correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was Paul in one of his letters says, why do I do the things I know I shouldn't and don't do the things I know I should? He asked himself that question 2,000 years ago. We have become afraid of asking ourselves that question in modern day life. And I think that's part of your masculinity thing is men need to ask those questions of themselves and answer them honestly, and then do something about it. And I think that's where people go, well, there's a mass shooter, blah blah blah. Something's going on, and immediately they go, oh, they had a bad family life. I know a lot of people who had bad family lives that did not become criminals. However, I will give you some credit for recognizing that's where the answer lies, is in the family, not in the government, doing stuff. And I thought Washington, Oregon, and California, like, pardon me for saying this, and I may lose some listeners here in the U.S., I thought they had taken the cake for coming up with some really ridiculous laws that affect family life. But Colorado is not to be outdone, and it is a crime in Colorado that if a child makes a complaint to law enforcement that my parents won't give me gender affirming therapy and transitioning medical, and you're under 18, and it doesn't matter, there's no age limit on this. If they make that complaint to law enforcement, it is a crime punishable by 4 months in jail, and I think it's a $10,000 fine for a parent to refuse to give their child what they want in that arena. And I'm just like, you talk about destroying the fabric of the family.
Right.
It doesn't get, when the child becomes the boss on something as important and life changing and permanent as that, then there's something wrong, and people are right to say it all starts and ends with the family unit. And now I'm off my soapbox, and I apologize. No, I don't.
Nah.
KMA. If you think I'm wrong, then that's your problem, not mine. But one of the things I want to just kind of wrap into is, because we're talking about masculinity, and I think people may think, okay, boy, that's so myopic and so your focus. Because I've had people tell me that they don't like the word in law enforcement. I teach this. A 3-day leadership course I teach, and I teach you need to be a warrior, a servant, and a leader. And people go, oh, and the police chiefs a lot, or politicians. Wow, you really don't like the word warrior. That's it's so negative. It has such negative connotations, and I'm like, I sometimes I just like. I had a coffee cup that had this on it. The definition of stress: when the mind overrides the body's desire to choke the living crap out of somebody that desperately deserves it. That's stress. And so there's sometimes I just like, oh man. And then I'll go, you know what? Do you think David in the Old Testament, what do you think of him? And a lot of people, if they know their scripture and whatnot, priest, prophet, he was everything. He was a warrior, but he was also an incredibly a man after God's heart. Okay, he was not. Now he did some bad things. Uriah and all that. He paid the price dearly. But I want you to kind of give your insights on that. We're not talking about being a kick ass and take names authoritarian. That's not masculinity. That servant's heart, that man, the man after God's own heart, that leader that is a person of influence and impact in the lives of other people. And my definition of a warrior has absolutely nothing. And I have a lot of friends that are come out of special ops community as well. It's not about killing people. It is about standing up, showing up, and respectfully, as respectfully as you can be, defend what you believe. And you're wearing all three of those hats at the same time. It's not, oh, well, today I'm going to be an ass kicker, but tomorrow I'm going to be loving, cuddling, and empathetic and compassionate. If that is the case, you need professional psychological help. You have to know when and how to defend what you believe. And if you're the north end of a southbound horse at work, but a girly dad at home, then you got some psychological split personality issues going on that you need help for. But so kind of wrap us up into how important is that servant leadership piece in your life, and what are some things that people in your coaching men, what are some things, actual action steps you're telling them, hey, here's some things that have worked for me or whatever. I mean, what's that coaching look like?
Okay, well, I had to reach back here because this is exactly what you're talking about. I used to do a show called the Dad Hat Shenanigans Podcast. I have my beautiful bright red bowler hat here on camera for all those who who are listening to the audio version of this. And the whole precipice or the whole idea behind the show was exactly that. As men, especially as dads, we wear a lot of hats, and we have to wear them all at the same time. But David really is a just phenomenal, a phenomenal example of this concept, right? Because David was a lot of things, and just like I said earlier, I am who I am. I'm not defined by what I do, right? David was the man after God's own heart. He made some mistakes in his life, but whether he wore a crown as a king during that era of his life, or whether he was protecting his sheep, or whether he was on the battlefield, he was the same man. He's just wearing a different hat that day, right? He's
Yeah.
always that person. He's always that. I mean, when David was young, right? One of the things that made Saul so angry was they, chanted in the cities as they came back from war. Saul has killed his thousands. David has killed his 10,000s or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He was a fierce, fierce warrior. He also wrote 60% of the Psalms.
Yeah.
He also mourned publicly and danced in the street and made a fool of himself more than once, right? David played a lot of roles. He was the same person, and sometimes he had to take off his armor and put on his crown, and sometimes he had to take off the crown and be a father and a husband, right? He had to appease Bathsheba a few times with their child. And so, we get into this idea that we can't be all of this. You're all of this. That's the depth we're talking about through this entire conversation. And so, I've always been a big fan of it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
A gardener in a war.
In a war. Yeah.
Right? It's a Bushido based saying, but the idea is true, right? Men should be capable. Men should be capable to, and old warriors during what they call the Dark Ages, right? When we think of knights and chivalry, right? Knights would go to battle and then they'd come home and put on their nice clothes and go to a big feast where they would dance and they would sing and do poetry as well, right? They were expected to be men across the board, not just the warrior, not just the whatever, right? And so you're absolutely right. We are designed to be all these things. And the problem happens a lot of times for most men in this area is we get lost in one, right? Because, like I said, we've been told we're that one identity our whole lives. We're the provider or we're the protector, right? We get the P's. What is it? Provider, protector, procreator. But that's not it. That's not enough. That's not who we are, and that's not what God made us to be. God made us with the capacity to do all these things, but the problem is we get hung up in the disbelief that we can only do. We only have so much to give, right? Oh, I need my downtime. I need my me time. We've been told we need downtime. We really don't need much downtime. We don't. Give me a campfire for half an hour, and I'm good for the week. Right?
Yeah.
Reset. Give me I don't encourage other people's bad habits, but give me a cigar, an hour, and campfire, and I'm good for 2 or 3 weeks. Like I don't need a reset. I can go 17 hours a day and usually do with my schedule. People think they need more rest, they need more breaks, no, you can absolutely go to work for 8 hours, 10 hours a day and come home and be a loving husband who helps around the house with chores and thanks to compliment his wife and tell her and appreciate her and make sure she feels special and still spend time with your kids and still have time for hobbies. You can do all of these things. Most of the time it's getting caught in one where we just feel like we're boxed in and that's who we are. And we stop believing we have the capacity, right? So the first thing I tell men is you start with something small, right? This was my journey. I picked one thing. I have been working in IT. I transitioned from doing construction for several years to the IT field. And all of a sudden I was working in a computer desk and I was at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day. And it was like, we used to joke with people in the first year, you're going to put on 30 pounds here. And it's true because it's such a stagnant job, right? Spend so much time in the computer chair. On average, people put on 25 to 30 pounds in the first year they were there. And then, but it took that year to get them into, okay, I need to eat less. I'm moving less, right? And you intuitively did it. It wasn't something you thought about. And so I had gotten into this rut and I was like, I need something. And so I decided I had the privilege at the time of the job I was in where I could eat at my desk anytime. I had a desk. I sat at most of the day, except when I had to run into the data halls. And so I could eat pretty much whenever I wanted to. I had to have a 30-minute lunch break by state standards, right? That's just law. And so we were at 10-hour days. So I would get there at like 5:45 in the morning and work from 6 to 4 every day. But I had that half an hour. And so I got up and I decided, you know what? I'm going to walk during lunch because I've started getting fat. I've let it go. I've stopped working out. In this transition from construction to IT, I really started buckling down and studying and teaching myself. So I'm going to walk, right? Because I've stopped working out. I've stopped moving as much. No, I didn't go like, I'm going to walk a certain distance. I said, I'm going to walk. And so at lunchtime, I went outside. I started walking laps around the building. And I wasn't like running. I wasn't like I didn't set my thing.
Yeah.
I walked. And for a while I walked. And then I started walking a little faster as it was easier to do. I started putting in music in my headphones and I'd walk and listen to music. And then I started thinking, hey, I can listen to a book. I had never listened to an audiobook. I want to learn some things. I'll listen to a book. So I started listening to audiobook and I've already been walking for months, right? And I'm getting a little faster every day. It's the story. This is multiple years, right? As the story transitioned, I was getting like 2 miles in my 30-minute lunch. Every day I was hitting 2 miles in laps around my it's like a 11-acre building.
Wow.
I'm getting 2 miles every day on my lunch break while I'm listening to a book. And now I'm taking the stuff I'm teaching myself in the books and I'm starting to apply that, right? I'm starting to apply some of the financial knowledge I'm learning about investing and stuff like that, right? We have lied to ourselves that we've hit this capacity wall. And so with any guy, I tell him, find one thing. That's it. One. That's where it starts. One thing that you can do today. One thing that's easy for you to do today. Read 5 pages. Walk for 10 minutes after a meal, right? That's honestly the best thing to do. Not a 30-minute walk. Walking for 10 minutes after each meal, walk 5 minutes away and 5 minutes back. It's better for you than walking 30 minutes straight. But yeah, it aids in your digestion and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of research behind it, but walk for 10 minutes today, right? I can get a 10-minute walk. I don't know. I can get 10,000 steps, but I can get a 10-minute walk in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Read 5 pages today on something that's actually going to teach me something instead of turning on Netflix. I can find time to read 5 pages of a book, right? Start building those little wins until they just become normal. Like you don't even think now you have to stop yourself, right? You're reading the 5 pages and now you got to stop yourself at 5 pages because you're like, oh, this is pretty good. And you want to keep reading. Now you want to walk a little more than that 5 or 10 minutes, right? As it becomes ingrained and it becomes a habit, stack another habit on top of it that pairs with it well. Like I said, I added audiobooks while I was walking. Then I started changing up what I was bringing for lunch. Little pre-planning, little pre-cooking, and I had a healthier lunch option, right? So I ate something healthier than I was, but I was already walking 1.5 miles to 2 miles every day and listening to 30 minutes of an audiobook, right? I started stacking little things.
Yeah.
And that's where I started going, hey, I have more capacity than this. And then getting off work and hitting the gym for an hour or, doing something active with my kids, right? I started figuring out, if I try and do it all at once, I'm going to die. It's just not going to work. That's why New Year's resolutions fail. Everybody sets these grand goals to like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work out 5 days. I've never worked out a day of my life. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. Of course you're going to fail. Do you even know where the gym is? Yeah, you're going to fail, right? James Clear nailed it with Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
It's the only book I actually give away as a gift is Atomic Habits because he breaks it down so well. But it really comes down to adding one simple thing that you can repeat every single day that makes you better, right? And once that becomes just, you don't even think about it anymore. You just do it. You add one more little thing that goes with it that complements it, right? And we start taking these little steps and all of a sudden we start realize we're doing more than we ever thought we could do.
Yeah.
We're reading a book. Now we're reading, for an hour a day because it turns out we kind of like to read actually. Now, yeah, we're not getting 10,000 steps a day, but now we're getting 3,000 or 4,000 steps a day instead of 2,000. right? Now we're eating at least one meal that we know is healthy. We're doing something to build our mind. We're doing something to build our body. And so, like, for me, I add it to my schedule because I am a business owner. I have it on my schedule, regardless of the rest of my week. I have one night a week from 4 o'clock until my children go to bed. It is religiously scheduled on my calendar. It's their night, period. Nothing gets scheduled in, period. If something comes up where I absolutely cannot get away from it, I will reschedule that night, show them on the calendar, okay, we can't do it. I got to do this thing Monday.
Yeah.
Can we reschedule for Thursday? Are you guys okay with that? I have turned down interviews. I have turned down business because that night, at least one night out of the week, sacredly theirs.
Yeah.
Right? Starts with little things, start adding little things, and all of a sudden you have a capacity you didn't know was possible. I did not set out when I started doing things to work 17-hour days. I started moving my alarm clock up when I was working IT. I had to be at work at 6. I started getting up 15 minutes earlier, so I had a few minutes to work on my computer on my new dream, on my new business before I had to get ready for work. And then I started getting up 15 minutes before that when that got easy. All of a sudden, I was getting up at 4 o'clock every morning, working till 5:15, taking a shower for 15 minutes, throwing on my clothes and being at work at 5:45, working from 6 to 4, and then coming home and doing something with my kids for a little bit, then working for a couple hours, and then wrapping out the night with them. I did not start with the intention of working 17-hour days every single day, and that is generally what my life lives like. That capacity came from adding one piece at a time, a little more, until it's not a thought anymore.
Yeah. But you were talking about the P's, and I wrote some notes. First thing the only P's I ever associated with living is the 7 P's. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And I don't know who taught me that, but it was that concept, like you say, stacking and living intentionally, that you have a plan. You may not know, it's not, I'm going to lose 50 pounds by this date. I have a plan that I'm going to stack action steps so that proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. And then the other thing that came to me is the 1 P every man needs to drop out of their life is procrastination. Is don't be an excuse guy. Be that intentional planner and realistically come up with I teach strategic management, and that's one of the things I teach is what you want to. It's great where you want to be 10 years from now. Where do you want to be 10 days from now? Let's focus on the doable, that we, like you call it, stacking, that we progress and hit those milestones, because physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, being successful and knowing it is good for you. Failure is the biggest killer of dreams, that you quit because you failed once, or you procrastinated, and it's our motto. This was laminated on my door at work. Always strive to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons. You can always do the right thing, but man, if you do it at the wrong time, or you do it in the wrong way, or you do it for the wrong reasons, just pull the pin on that grenade and throw it, because it's going to blow up on you. So I wish I had a guy like you when I was in my 20s, that would be that guy, be Paul, and go, come on, quit making excuses. And it's true. The more you study Paul and realize why he was writing so many letters from prison was because of having that clear, definitive rule of life, and that faith, and that as he wrote in one of his final letters, is I've run the good race, and he realized you never arrive. It's it's a journey. Treat it like that, and you're going to fall sometimes, and you're going to have failures, and that's okay if you get back up and learn from those mistakes.
Can we squash failure for just a second here?
Yeah.
You said, that results in failure. We need to change our attitude about failures, because failure is the best thing that can happen to you. Fail fast, fail hard, fail big. But the key is fail fast. Stop dragging your feet, stop procrastinating, take an idea, run with it when you're at 70%, because you're never getting to 100%. Run with it at 70%. You'll figure out the rest of the way, or it'll fall flat. But there's nothing wrong with failing. Edison gets misquoted so many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best example ever, right? It is not that he, made 1,000. No, he said, I found 1,000 ways not to make a carbon filament fiber bulb, right? Light bulb already exists. That's a whole another rat hole, but the light bulb already existed at that time. Edison's job was to make it affordable and cheap for mass production. That was his job, right? He failed over 1,000 times to do that, over and over and over and over and over again. What did it do? He kept trying.
Yep. Persistent.
And he just kept running with it, and he learned what it taught him, right? Because failure is just data. I worked in the IT industry for years. Failure is just data. The more you can stop and separate emotion from your failure, separate the emotion out of it. As a guy, you're 100% capable. Our brains are wired differently than women's. We compartmentalize things. And so we can absolutely separate the emotion from the incident, separate out the emotion, suck it up a little bit, and go, what did I learn? No, I didn't achieve what I wanted to. What did I learn about this? I failed because I rushed this, or I didn't prep enough for this, or I got lazy about this, or I cut this corner, right? It is a rich data bed that sets you up for success. If you look at why you failed to get those New Year's resolutions, or why you failed on that diet, if you start looking at all as empirical data, you will see the patterns that you're using to sabotage your own life.
Yeah. That's man. We could go on for hours. Chris Voss and Robin Dreek, guys, a lot of things. That was one of the, or a friend of mine that works anti-human trafficking. He was a Army PFC, 82nd Airborne, got his Green Beret, got his Ranger tab, and retired. When he retired, he was Delta Force. I mean, a badass of the badasses. And all he did was headhunt. Not all he did. One of the big things he did was headhunt, terrorists. And then he's taken that skill set. Jeff Teagues is his name. He lives out in Bend, Washington, Oregon, Bend, Oregon. But what he said, that's what he goes, one of the most simple tools that you need to have is look for patterns, and then where the pattern should be, it's not. There's your problem. What's missing? He goes, you go hunting for Easter eggs. You know what the backyard and all the landscape's supposed to look for, and it has a pattern. Look for a disruption in the pattern, and there's your Easter egg. That's how you find it. So, man, we could just, I could talk to you for hours, but we don't have hours. I know you got some other stuff to do as well, but some final, if you had, well, before I even do that, because I had to write this down because I was going to forget it. What's your contact info? How can people reach out to you to learn more or to become more? If they want a men's coach, how do they reach you?
PurposeDrivenMen.com. That's I finally just built a home base where I can put everything back to. So it's PurposeDrivenMen.com.
Awesome. And I know you're backing down. You and Rory, that's one of our mutual friends, are kind of, you're getting refocused. What are some of the podcasts if they want to go, I want to hear more, not just reaching out to you. I want to listen to you more. What's your podcast the go-to one that you want them to check in on?
Home base is the Driven to Thrive broadcast. It was originally the Fallible Man podcast, like my company. That's why it's called that. My company's called that. We rebranded back in 2024 to the Driven to Thrive broadcast to make it a little clearer for men what it was about. But that is my home base. We're like 410 episodes in
Wow.
a year doing this. And that is me. That is a place to find. I come at everything with a mix of neurology. I'm going to say this wrong. Neuroscience, Bible, and Stoicism. So,
I'm glad you said Stoicism. I had a guest on another episode. And I go, I'm Irish, born in Ireland, and we try to fancy ourselves as Stoics. In reality, for most Irish, for me in particular, it wasn't Stoicism. It was, hey, just ignore a problem long enough and it might go away on its own. But it sounds better if I go, oh, yeah, I'm a very stoic individual.
right?
Or, yeah, nah, it's like, nah, man, I want to avoid, growing up, I wanted to avoid those difficult conversations and with my own kids and stuff like that. And it was like, Dad, I called it the Irish way, and they go, no, Dad, it was the Pat Welsh way. Just, ignore it, and maybe it'll go away. That's not Stoicism. So I had to share that because I love when I hear guys who really know what the Stoics are about and really know what rhetoric is about and how words have meanings and impact, all that kind of stuff. Man, I'll tell you what, Brent, thank you so much for being here today. Any last parting bit of advice, like, Pat, you never asked me something, and I really have been dying to say I wanted to share this. What, if there is that? What do you want to share that I missed?
It's my go-to slogan, and it is "Be better tomorrow because of something you did today."
Awesome.
It's one little thing. Like I said, honestly, it can take 1 minute. Pick one small thing today that makes your life better tomorrow.
Awesome. Brent, thank you so much, man. I loved having you on. I know our audience is walking away with a lot of inspiration. For our audience, I want to thank you. We're coming up on our 100th episode here, dropping, like in 5 or 6 days. So I don't know why I'm saying that now, because it will have already dropped when this one drops. But it's because of you and your desire to be a warrior servant leader. We're now in 74 countries and Hong Kong, China, which is not a country anymore. And it's growing because of your commitment to be like Brent has said, to be better tomorrow because of one little thing you did today. So thank you so much. Connect with us, the Warrior Servant Leader podcast.com. Our YouTube channel is by the same name, or reach out to me, Pat Welsh JD, at Pat Welsh JD on all the social medias, and get involved. And if you got questions, ask them. So as I end every episode, always, always, always strive to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons, because that's what warrior servants, leaders do every day, every time. Love you all, and see you next week.